What is going on, guys? Today we are back with the Web Security Academy Lab walkthrough series. Today we're going to be doing the 13th installment of these lab walkthroughs, which is going to be blind SQL injection with time delays. So imagine that the back-end developers have mitigated almost every injection technique that we've done so far. So the first one that we looked into was being able to notice some type of visual difference or some difference in the code. And then the second one that we looked for was specifically causing errors on the back end within the SQL syntax, so that we could find out whether a particular parameter was injectable or not. So you could imagine that most of these techniques are mitigated on a lot of modern web applications that are hardened. So one thing that we can do when we can't either see any differences or specifically cause any errors, it has good error handling, is we can cause time delays in the processing of that query. And one way to do that is kind of how this lab shows us. So we can go ahead and walk through this really quick. Let's go ahead and come over to burp, make sure our intercept is turned on, and then we're going to refresh the home page because it's going to be in the tracking ID this time. So come back over to burp, send this to repeater, and then we'll turn the intercept off, and then we can come over here to set up our SQL injection. So one thing that we want to do is we want to start out by putting a single quotation mark because we want to close off that tracking ID. And very similarly, as the last couple labs, this lab is going to be making a query for the tracking ID to see if that's a valid tracking ID on the back end. So we don't want to actually alter what that tracking ID is at all. So we want to close that off and make sure that we have that valid one there. Then, since it's a string, that tracking ID is a string, we want to concatenate with a double pipe operator. And that we want to add to the tracking ID, we want to add this function. So this isn't actually going to alter the string at all, so it's still going to register as a valid tracking ID when it checks. We're just adding a function to it. So we're going to do PG_sleep, and then we're going to pass in, let's say, 10. So the number that you pass in is the number of seconds that this is going to wait to process that backend query. So what you'll see is when we pass this through, this is going to wait 10 seconds to process that backend query, so we can kind of elicit a different type of behavior out of the application without seeing anything either in terms of errors or in terms of different visual behavior on the web page itself. We're going to send this through, and then we should see about 10 seconds here. So if we wait for a second, you can kind of see here that we're just hanging around. You can see it's still waiting right here, and then you saw that 10-second delay. So that would show that a parameter is still injectable just by triggering some type of time delay. And actually, that's all you need to solve this lab. In the next lab, we'll use that time delay to get some information retrieval to get like what the administrator's password was, similar to like what we did with the behavior differences in terms of blind SQL injection labs. All right, thank you guys so much. Join me back again and we'll do that information retrieval with the blind SQL injection time delays. Thanks, guys.